Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I have 4 new stories for you today. Let's go to the first one, about OP's crazy mother-in-law, who threatens to sue OP and her husband for wedding and honeymoon expenses OP didn't even attend. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Today is my birthday, and I got the same thing from my boyfriend's mother that she has sent me for the last 5 years. A card and a bill for the wedding and honeymoon she planned for us back in 2013. Just so I don't feel singled out, my boyfriend gets roughly the same thing for his birthday in April, but he also gets a shirt or some other nice piece of clothing. Background: my boyfriend and I grew up about 10 kilometers from each other, but didn't meet until university, which is about 30 kilometers away. After a couple of years, we got an apartment together near campus. His mother was shocked that her son was getting a female roommate, but also that he was not only sharing a bedroom with her, but a bed. After we graduated, we moved to my hometown where we eventually got jobs at the same company. We looked all over the metro area for jobs, and it just happened to be we both got them in my hometown, just different apartments. We again got an apartment together, so I guess you could say we were living in sin still. One day, we were invited to his mother's church, though she didn't specify why. We had done this before, mostly to offer free labor or other helping out services for the church, so we thought nothing of it. When we got there on a rainy summer day, his parents ran out to meet us in the parking lot, carrying a garment bag for both of us. My boyfriend opened his to find a nice new tuxedo, and when I opened mine to find a nice white wedding dress, my boyfriend said, "Mother, no," and dropped his into the mud at his feet. His mother then told me she had to guess at my size, but she brought someone who could fix it up on the spot. I asked if my parents were there, and she told me that since they obviously didn't care about my lifestyle arrangements, she didn't think they should come. I followed my boyfriend's lead and just dropped the dress into the mud. I did get a look inside the church, and there were about 50 people in there waiting, but they were all my boyfriend's friends and family. I saw nobody I knew outside of people I knew through him. We got back in our car and drove off back home. I guess this had cost her thousands of dollars, without checking with either myself or my boyfriend. We found out later that she had bought non-refundable tickets for a cruise and hotel that was to be our honeymoon. So she sends us the annual bill for what it cost her on our birthdays, and we haven't paid it back at all. The only difference is that this year, she wrote in the card that she was going to start to charge interest, so she hoped she didn't have to take us to court. My boyfriend and I have talked about getting married eventually, when this whole COVID thing is over, and we have decided to have a small ceremony at the courthouse and a honeymoon in Thailand. We are saving money for that, and still don't know if we'll tell his parents until after the fact or not. We are definitely not telling them yet that we have no desire to ever have children, so that's something else to look forward to. My parents just laugh at the whole thing and say they will help pay for the attorney if it gets that far. Wow, this is a trip. First, she can't take OP to court for something that would be classified as a gift, since all of this was arranged without OP's knowledge. Second, she sounds like someone I wouldn't even want in my life either. Probably safer to tell her after the ceremony, if bother to tell her at all. And actually, I would love to see this in court. Imagine the look on the judge's face. Back in the mid-1960s, my grandma, who was 15, worked at a movie theater with my grandpa, 20. My grandpa was already married to someone else and had a newborn when my grandma got pregnant with my dad. I don't know any of the details of their relationship. When my dad was born, my grandpa had been shipped out to Vietnam. At some point, when grandpa was on the local base, my grandma went there with my dad as a toddler, but he told her that wasn't his son and kicked her off the base. That's the only thing she ever told me. No one else in my family ever spoke of it again. My grandma died 10 years ago, and my dad died 5 years ago. I took a DNA test last year and matched with a half-cousin of mine. My dad and her dad are half-brothers, so we're half-cousins. Her dad is the baby who was born a year before my dad. I didn't use my real name or a picture. I didn't contact her, but she had her social media info in her profile, so I followed her. Through her social media, I learned my grandpa passed away 2 weeks ago. I never said anything to any of that side of my family, never met him, Never saw any of them in person. I decided to go to the funeral to pay my respects because I think that's what my dad would have wanted, and it would be the last time I could at least see his face in person. I'd also be able to see a bunch of pictures of him, and see my aunts, uncles, cousins in person as well. I don't know if this is normal, but we had the funeral at a big church, then a kind of reception. Can't be the right word. In the dining hall right next door, then the burial. I went to the funeral and sat in the back. I cried, quietly, not for him, just for the fact that my dad is dead, and now both of his parents are dead. I cried for the fact that my dad never got the chance to even speak to his dad. I cried for the fact that I never had a paternal grandpa, and that my kids will never have a paternal grandpa. At the reception, I was asked a bunch of questions by everyone. I kinda buried the lead here, but I was the only black person at the funeral. My grandma's also black. I was honest, but vague. I told everyone I didn't know the dearly departed, but he worked with one of my grandparents at a movie theater. Everyone brushed it off, but the widow caught on. My uncle, the same one that was a baby when my dad was born, pressed me for more information. I knew he knew, so I just said, "Look, you know who I am. I just wanted to see his face and pay my respects." He said that's been done, so I should leave. I left. I'm reading my cousin's social media, and I'm seeing a lot of messages from family about how ducked up it is I would show my face at the funeral. How no one knew I existed, now everyone does. And all I did was cause his widow stress. I get it, but I just wanted to see my grandpa. This guy abandoned OP's dad, and OP wants to pay respect? This guy isn't OP's grandfather. He didn't raise OP's dad, and he didn't help raise OP. He doesn't deserve OP's respect. The other point of view is that OP showed up to the funeral of a guy who, albeit is the a-hole here, when his affair could have really messed up the family and taken years for them to get over. That's not OP's fault, but they don't view OP as family. OP should not focus on some guy's family that abandoned OP. OP deserves a real family, and they are not it. My ex, 37 male, and I, 29 female, have been broken up for about a year. We had been together for 3 years. We both have our own businesses and are fairly independent and travel a lot, and therefore have separate houses and never lived together full time. The breakup was really painful for me because I was still very much in love with him, but could feel him start to lose interest and drift off, basically ghosting me while away on a trip one time, and when I had to leave shortly after that for a trip of my own. He told me over the phone while I was away that he was still in love with me, but he thought we should change the nature of our relationship because it was too hard with us being away so much. I was devastated. About a month later, we were both back home in the same town. He asked to see me. We had S. We told each other we loved each other. It felt pretty much the same as when we were together. Another month went by. We would text about once a week, always romantic or S. And about once a month for the next year, we'd meet back up and hook up. Sometimes me asking to see him, sometimes him asking to see me. Sometimes his place, sometimes mine. I never asked if he was seeing anyone, and he never asked me. I would go through waves of wanting him back, but still had a lot of pain around the breakup, so I never asked if we could go back to the way things were. Then, about a month ago, he asked to see me. He invited me to a rental villa he owns, not his own house. Fair enough, it's closer to my place, and I figured we were just meeting up for a quickie. We talked for a bit, then went to the bedroom. Started kissing, and he told me passionately that he loves me. We start getting undressed, and he says, "Yours is still my dream body, the perfect woman." We had amazing S, unprotected as always. I'm on birth control, and both ended up in loving tears. He was crying, telling me how he's never missed or wanted an ex like this before. How this is always going to be what our connection is like. How much he loves me. He told me he's thought about me every ducking day since we broke up. Me too. And wakes up in the morning feeling like he's screaming out my name. I felt it too. Super powerful emotions. It was really intense. I had to run to work after that, so we didn't really get to talk about what it all meant for our future. After I left, I didn't hear from him at all for 2 days, which was pretty unusual for him, so I got worried. He almost never posts anything on social media at all. His last pictures on Instagram are from a trip we took together a year ago. So I started digging in his tagged photos, which I never did before because I was trying to heal from the breakup, so I avoided looking at his profiles. Saw a girl tagged in a pic with him, clicked her profile, and sure enough, over the past year, she has tons of pictures posted with him. And her most recent one of them together was hashtagged Future Omorito from 2 weeks prior. I felt like I had been sucker punched. I freaked the duck out, started screaming at him via text that he had to tell her what he did, or that I would tell her. I went nuts. He eventually agreed to meet up with me, broke down crying, told me he had started seeing her while we were still together, when he ghosted me, that she didn't know we were still hooking up, begged me not to tell her, etc. I tried to get him to agree to tell her, but he wouldn't. He just said, "I've apologized to her for any ways I've hurt her. She wouldn't want to know. Don't I deserve happiness? I will be a better person to her, I promise," etc., etc. I was so angry and disgusted with him, and so wanting to run away from it all, that I let it go. So basically, he's a piece of crap, and I dodged a huge bullet by not ending up with him. My sadness about the breakup immediately switched to rage at him, and a deep pity for her, 25 female by the way. I thought our age difference was big, but she's 12 years younger than him. I started viewing her like a little sister I want to protect from making this huge mistake. I have such a huge sadness for her, to be marrying someone who would not only cheat, unprotected, continually, but also say those things to another woman after being engaged to her. Dream body, perfect woman, screaming out your name, etc., etc. I tried to forget about it and let it go, but still now, more than a month after that discovery, I feel absolutely sick to my stomach with guilt, knowing that she is going to marry him without knowing he's been unfaithful to her their entire relationship. Is it my place to tell her? I thought I had decided to definitely not tell her and just let their lives play out as it will. But it's still keeping me up at night. What would you do? I would 100% tell her. I honestly think it will be on OP's conscience if she doesn't really. It would be on mine too if I was in OP's shoes. After reading, there's also a possibility that she's been in the picture for longer than he said. Considering OP and him didn't live together, he may well have been leading a completely separate life. I think OP should give her all of the facts, and then it's up to her what she chooses to do with the information. Some people can be worried about not being believed, etc., but more often than not, the person is glad to be told. I would 100% want to know if it was me, so I think OP would be doing the right thing by telling her. OP should not let her ex know though, as he will prepare a story to feed her if she suspects that OP will be telling her. I guess I need to give some background to this. I, 26 female, have a 5-year-old little girl with my ex, 33 male. We were together for almost 5 years and split up in January of 2020. When it happened, he admitted he had been basically with someone behind my back for a few years of it. The actual amount to me is unknown, but she, 34 female, had verbally told me that she had been saving things for my daughter while waiting. Long story short, and because I want to get past the background info, we split and they got married in November of 2020. With no support from anyone except a few friends and an upstairs neighbor, I couldn't fight the expensive lawyer he paid for, and he became the primary parent. We were not ever married, but he had a lot of support and a place to stay with family. I thought that was the best option for my daughter, and I still regret not fighting it when they told me we had to settle outside of court because of COVID. I didn't even have a working car, and my family, even though they lived down the road, have always treated me just like a foster child. Flash forward to now. I go over to him and his wife's apartment to visit my daughter a lot. Regardless of all of the crap, I am still trying to just be friendly so we can all be friends for the sake of my daughter. They have always had a tendency to belittle my feelings and only be friendly when it's on their own terms. Today, we took her to a corn maze for Halloween. With no way to take her myself, my PT Cruiser I had was a terrible car choice and died about a month ago. I had asked her stepmom to go with me, but she insisted we all go. It wasn't the worst, even though I definitely got very uncomfortable doing things with both of them. We get back to their apartment after, and they insist on grabbing lunch, since everyone was hungry. Somehow, we got on the conversation of Christmas while there, and I let slip that Christmas depresses me. It depresses me because without my daughter, I don't enjoy it as much, and it isn't my favorite. I am with someone who I know I can spend Christmas with, but the magic of Christmas is lost to me when I don't get to stay up late putting out presents and hiding things for my daughter. I'll be honest that my family does absolutely nothing for Christmas, so I didn't start loving the holiday until I had a small thing to share it with. When I let slip that it depresses me, her stepmom kept insisting on me telling her why, even though I said I didn't want to talk about it. I finally, calmly said I don't enjoy it because I don't live with my daughter. Her stepmother immediately flew off the handle on me about how they do so much for me, and at one point, she told me I have no right to feel the way I do because they're my family. Am I the a-hole for not feeling that way and disliking a holiday? I am currently feeling so guilty for even speaking about my feelings. Not an a-hole. OP needs to start saving, go back to court, and get 50-50 custody. She's overstepping. OP has every right to her feelings. Just because she is now the wife and OP is trying for peace doesn't take away from the history.